Welcome back to the Sports Complex on a Thursday afternoon. Big show today. We will get to some audio from Sark today talking about the big matchup against Oklahoma this weekend and a lot of Texas versus OU talk. Of course, we will get in. My man Joe Cook from Inside Texas is calling into the show today to talk some more. Guess what? Texas and OU. We'll be talking about that for all show long. We'll also be making some NCAA picks for the weekend and some NFL picks. My man Jacob Standard. Have we figured out a new nickname? It's not Digital Wizard anymore. That was shot down by unanimous votes. No one liked it. We'll go with Digital Dog today. Anybody got a better one for us? Tell us on the text line. Jacob Standard in studio with me today. He normally does Friday, but tomorrow we're going to have a big show with Aaron Hogan out at Terry Black's Barbecue in Dallas and some special guests out there. Rob Baber's going to join me in studio, so I thought, why don't we bring in Jacob on a Thursday, and we'll get our picks out so you guys can be woefully unprepared for your weekend as those picks go through. Remember, you guys, join the conversation. You guys drive the show. We just try and keep it on the rails. 512-447-3776. You've got a better name for Jacob other than Digital Wizard or Digital Dog or whatever else we're going to call him. How you doing, Jacob?
I'm doing great. Yeah, after having some time to reflect on Digital Dog, I'm not sure I'm completely sold on that one either. But we'll Mix Master J. Here we go.
But he's not mixing anything. No. He is mixing less than I am mixing.
But it sounds cool, Patrick.
I get, but you don't get a cool nickname unless you earn it. You are not Mix Master. You are Mix Edit.
Mix Edit. Yeah, there you go. How do we find the video version of Mix Master J? I'll go with that one. But I'm good, Patrick. How are you?
I'm doing good. Mix, wait for something to save for 2 hours while you do something else to come back and see that it failed and want to break your computer. Yeah, that's my experience with the video editing.
Yeah, my timelines get a little complex sometimes, and so I will walk away because it's about an hour rendering process, only to come back to a failed render. So, yeah, that's the joys of video editing, everybody.
That is, guys, if you want to hear more about video editing, don't text in, and we'll just talk about it. But if you want to talk sports, keep texting in 512-447-3776. Going to be a good show today, getting everything going. Remember, you can join Aaron Hogan tomorrow out at Terry Black's Barbecue in Dallas. If you are going to Dallas for the game, you're going to be down there Friday night. He'll be down there with some special guests, having a good old time. And then tomorrow, Saturday, Jacob and I will be out at the Field House at the Crossover, doing a watch party with you guys. Morning show. The morning show guys will be doing the pregame from 9 to 11 right here on the Horn. If you have some names. Also today, if we got this because it's Thursday, if you guys have good Texas OU jokes, if you have good Oklahoma jokes, if you got some more OU sucks, because it is 5:04 and OU still sucks.
Yeah, indeed they do.
If you guys got any jokes you want to put in the text line, we'll try and put them together, and I'll see if Jacob can read them later so that I don't fumble over the words and get in trouble. And I don't want to get canceled, so I'll let Jacob read them.
I don't want to see them beforehand, though. I just want to blindly read it and see if I can catch the parts where they're trying to get me to slip.
Yeah. All right. So send those in as well. 512-447-3776. We'll get to the Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day in just a little bit. Sark did speak to the media today, so we'll get you a little bit more of a preview into Texas OU as we get in. First and foremost, before even the opening statement, let's go to this sound, which I think is one of the more important, one of the more talked about and asked. It's 5 seconds of audio, but I think this is it. When Sark was asked JT Sanders and Ryan Watts an update on their health, here's what Sark had to say.
T looks great. He'll be good to go Saturday. I think Ryan's going to be a game time decision.
So JT looks good. He's ready to go for Saturday.
That's awesome.
That is big news for Texas fans because that means JT Sanders is going to be in that starting lineup. It gives you that further, too many heads of a monster. That Oklahoma's defense is really, really good. We know this defense is really, really good. They're holding teams to, I think, like around 10 points a game. It's something that if they were able to keep this for the rest of the season, it would be a historic low in points allowed, especially for how the game has changed so much. To basically hold teams to 10 points a game in the Big 12 would be a great milestone. Now, that's also a couple weeks in the Big 12 play. They haven't started to get to – they have not played an electric offense like Texas yet.
No.
So, you could put it on them. And when you have a JT Sanders, it opens it up that A.D. Mitchell, that Xavier Worthy, and now Jonathan Brooks coming out of that backfield. There's a lot more options for this Texas team. And it gives you that, how do you guard everything?
Yeah, no doubt. And we haven't even seen all the options yet because someone like Keelan Robinson, I mean, you're still waiting on him to get going somewhere. And the thought is that he's being saved for a special game plan. Why not this week?
Yeah. I mean, you could put Keelan Robinson there because this is Oklahoma's run defense is pretty stout.
Yeah.
And the problem is Oklahoma's run defense is stout, but we've seen in previous games, well, okay, Wyoming's run defense was stout. And they backed off of it a lot to try and stop Quinn Ewers and try and stop when you say, well, do we want to really go full force to stop Jonathan Brooks and C.J. Baxter, or do we want to try and stop Xavier Worthy, J.T. Sanders, A.D. Mitchell, Jordan Whittington, and whoever else they throw out there?
Yeah, pick your poison.
But that's the thing is, well, I feel like we might need some extra help to stop the 4 that we know. And then if they decide that if this is a game to bring a Jonte Cook out and have him run a fly route, someone that you haven't really scouted as much. We figure Brennan Thompson's going to get out there at least a player or two for Oklahoma to try, see if he can get against this Texas defense that he was on last year. So maybe he'll get out for a couple. But Texas has some good young wide receivers that no one's really seen. You just mentioned Keelan Robinson. It's another piece. So you go, well, they put him out, and now they flip the ball out to him. And, as good of a runner as Jonathan Brooks is and C.J. Baxter, they're not quite the receiving running backs that Keelan Robinson at least was last year.
Sure.
That you may be able to put him out, and if you're trying to bull rush Quinn Ewers and have him pop out, then maybe that's another way to go. I think it's so much about how many weapons you can have. Having J.T. Sanders be available is definitely a big plus for Texas going into this game. Another thing Sark was asked about, though, was the running back rotation. And this is what we've talked about a little bit throughout this week and last week, and I know Rod has talked about it too, and that is Texas, is Sark intentionally at this point not naming Jonathan Brooks the starter and not just being like he's the guy to keep motivating Jonathan Brooks? Because it seemed to work at the beginning of the year. It seemed to work that he said, I'm not going to have, C.J. Baxter is the guy, and we're going to figure it out from there.
I mean, would you tell him he's the starter at this point?
At this point, well, no, he's the starter. He's clearly the starter now. You can't say, hey, you got $600 per, like you're dominating, but obviously you're not starter. But you are going to say you're going to share reps. Here's Sark talking about the running back rotation and still not budging.
Well, I think first of all, competition brings out the best in all of us, and that was hopefully my goal when I got here, is that we could create a really competitive roster, one that every guy knows, whether you're the starter or not, the guy behind you or the 2 guys behind you might be as good or better than you. And so that hopefully pushes work ethic, that pushes commitment and discipline, and accountability, that pushes the mental and physical toughness that's needed to be a really good football player. And that pushes being a great teammate. And I think at that running back position, we've got a really competitive room, most notably with JB and CJ. But, when you look at last week's game, I think JB had 20 carries, and I think CJ had 16 carries. And so it wasn't this huge disparity in number of carries in the game. And the fact that Jonathan was able to pop a couple runs and catch a screen and have some explosive plays, where I think CJ had, 70 something, almost 80 yards rushing, and he caught a screen for about another 15 yards or whatever it was. So the point being, those 2 guys are going to play for us. And naturally in game, you try to find those windows of who's the hot hand to feed that hand. And hey, I hope we end up at the end of the year with 2 really good runners, because as we know in football, you're going to need them. And who would have thought, 2.5 games into the season, CJ would be going through an injury of his college career, and Jonathan would step in. So we're fortunate. JB has earned this opportunity that he's getting right now, and we're fired up the way he's playing and the way he's preparing to play every Saturday.
If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Not going to take it away. And I think there is something to be said of he saw what happened last year in the bowl game. And, he goes, look, Jonathan Brooks is going to be great, but, man, we have to have somebody ready to go behind him, because we, when we kind of stuck when Bijan and Roschon left in that bowl game, we were scared going into week 1 this year. We were scared because we didn't know we had that running back. We were hoping C.J. Baxter was going to be great. He was a good running back, but we didn't expect to have a Jonathan Brooks. We didn't expect to have a guy demanding the position.
Yeah, no, and that's a good problem to have. I like the bit he was talking about in there about competition. Like you should always be uncomfortable with your standing on the depth chart. I think that's how you breed a very successful running back room like that. When so many teams are doing a committee kind of approach, you need to have both guys or even three guys substitute in without dropping off production.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things when you look at this matchup with OU that Texas has that 1 year advantage on, of just one more year of being ready than they are at OU right now, which is other than the wide receiver room, which the wide receiver room they have massive depth in. They are just loaded at wide receiver, Oklahoma is. Other than that, they're good at every position. But once you start to get down a little bit lower, it's a bigger drop off than Texas, which is part of that third and fourth quarter play that they've talked about so much this year. Is for Texas, they're being able to rotate that defense pretty willingly, and I don't know if OU is going to be able to rotate that defense to be able to stay fresh in the fourth quarter when Texas has been known to this season be putting it on people. So if Texas can be a fresher team because of the rotation in the third and fourth quarter, then that means, that's another edge that goes Texas' way. And OU will catch up next year. They'll go get, they'll get some more recruits. They'll have some more guys in camp and they'll be catching up. They just feel like 1 year behind Texas right now, which last year, Texas won 49-0 a year ago. So it's not like a year behind us is necessarily a bad team in this rivalry game.
Right.
They can still come out and surprise people. But I do think it's you just see that depth is going to come and play for Texas on the defense, especially. It has already this year.
Yeah, it's like we've seen already this season through the first 4 games or 5 games is that the reason they're pulling away in the second half is they are the more fresh team and they're just dominating people in the second half.
Yeah, and part of that is the run game again. And Sark was asked about the chemistry of when you have a Jonathan Brooks who is able to run the ball like he has and is going to be such a factor this weekend going against a really good Oklahoma run defense. Because if you can run the ball when they're trying to stop that and then they're not allocating extra resources to the pass, then this could become an easier and easier game for Texas. And especially in the third and fourth quarter, in that second half game where you're trying to, if you get a 14-point lead or a 10-point lead and you're just trying to, runs a little bit more clock, that run game in Jonathan Brooks is so valuable at that point. Sark was asked about the chemistry between the O-line, the wide receiver, just everybody on the team kind of coming together for this run game. Here's what Sark had to say about building chemistry in the run game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the chemistry starts with trust in that the offensive line starts to get belief and trust in the runner that he's going to hit these runs where they're supposed to go. And then there's trust and belief in the runner that the offensive line is going to block these runs in a way that he can hit these runs where they're supposed to go. And I think that chemistry, quite frankly, starts with the coaches, and I think about Coach Flood and Coach Banks with the O-line and the tight ends and that chemistry with Coach Choice and tying all that together. We've got great staff rapport. These guys have a lot of fun together. They work hard together, but I think that bleeds into the players' rapport with one another too. They feel that. They feel when coaches are working well together and tied together and communicating on the same page. And I think it all plays a part to, hey, this thing's going to work and here's why. And when it doesn't, okay, this is what's got to get fixed and we'll get it fixed quickly and we'll probably come back to it later in the game.
And that's kind of where they've been this year, which has been a different from last year, is coming back to things and in plays that worked, they're starting to do a little bit more. They're starting to not necessarily feel the need. Sark used to have a thing where if he called a play and it worked in the first half, it was never going to be called again. And he's starting to kind of go back to simplistic ways on some of them because they're not the exact same play. He's not calling things the same way. So it may have a different personnel group or a different formation, but it's basically the same play. So it's showing a different look, but it's a play that worked and he thinks it'll work again. He's going to that more than he was last year and the year before, where he really just wanted to keep throwing different looks at a guy. And I think that's one of the developments that's helping them out is when they get to the fourth quarter, he can look back and go, okay, those plays are working. I don't want to do that exact same thing again, but now I can do it and switch out the personnel, and that'll give them a different look because now it's a different running back running the same play. Or I'm going to switch the formation up a little bit, or maybe we'll come in and we'll throw another tight end into this or something like that, where you're not necessarily calling the exact same play, but it's basically the same play. I think that's been one of his steps ahead in the game planning and preparing for calls. And I'll play some in a second, but it's setting things up. I think he's done a good job of setting up some plays, and sometimes it's annoying to watch, which we all know when we see something that isn't working, and you go, why do you keep calling this play that is not working?
It's necessary.
You're trying to set something up. Sark was asked by our man Joe Cook about a screen pass that he has been doing a lot, and he's been having some success on some of the screens, and some of them he's not. And shout out to Joe that Sark enjoys the way he rephrased the screen pass of how he called it. So if you see at the beginning, it's because Joe called it something that I guess was not what it was called in the playbook.
Oh,
but here's Sark talking about a screen pass that I know sometimes people hate the screen game. It's one of the things that got Greg Davis fired here many years ago, that people, it gets really tiresome, especially when it's not working. And they've played a couple teams where it hasn't been great and worked well in the first half, but it does start to open up. Here's Sark talking about a screen pass.
I like how you described that, the spin around screen. I might name it the spin around screen. It's, hey, plays off of plays, right? And that play comes off of an action that we use quite a bit in the play action game. And, we have to try to keep people honest in how they defend some of our play passes and our crossing routes when they're trying to punch out and get underneath them. We try to have screens off of our play passes to keep people honest and in hopes that maybe that can generate an explosive as well. So again, I think it's one thing, it's design, it's another for execution. And then it's thirdly timing of the call, right? When you think it's the right time to call a screen like that. But that inevitably, when you call a screen, you're trying to keep people honest, so that they're not overplaying some of the other things that you like to do.
And that's the reality, is you have to kind of set up those plays. And last year we got on Sark a lot more because he would call one screen pass and then 3 deep passes to keep he said, one screen, we're going to keep you. And it gets 2 yards, and then he throws 2 deep passes in a row, and then he has to punt the ball. He goes, well, I set the screen. It seems like he is starting to figure out the inside-outside a little bit more. He's calling a little bit more screen plays to set up the run, because if you set up a screen to the outside and they start to move that offensive line or the defensive line and the linebackers, everybody starts to spread out a little bit to get a firmer grasp on some of those, especially when you have bunch formations and they really think you're lining up wide receivers to block, and then you just run it up, the B gap the other way, and
right.
You just run it through the line. I think he's been setting up those really well. And then it comes down to, can you make the big plays? Can you make the explosive plays against an Oklahoma team? Because you're going to need those. If you just try and rely completely on physicality, that's where errors can creep in, because you're just shrinking your window of your margin of victory. You're shrinking the window of how well you can beat this Oklahoma team. So you have to have some explosive plays, or at least go for them at points. And something that was brought up today, Sark talked about, was Quinn Ewers on big stages. That we know Quinn Ewers against Alabama last year had a really good game until he got knocked out.
Yeah.
Oklahoma, of course, he had a good game. And in some bigger games last season, he seemed to step up. In the big games this season, he has stepped up and played well. Here's Sark talking about Quinn on big stages and the benefit of that.
No, I don't notice so much anything different. I think Quinn obviously prepares really well, always does. I think that I'd much rather have the quarterback that can perform really well when the lights are shining the brightest than the other way around. And so, I'm appreciative of that he definitely shows up in these games. But it's like anything, we've got to have a good plan for him. The players around a quarterback need to play well in game, right? It's not all about him. We need to make sure that we're playing really good complementary football with our defense and our special teams. But at the end of the day, it's not always about physical ability. It's about having the mental capacity to be in the moment, to stay in the moment, and to stay focused on the task at hand, regardless of the emotion in the game.
And that's really what I think Quinn has done well, is in those games where he's able to be a little bit more relaxed in the big moment because he feels like he should be there.
Yeah.
That he's been having good games because he can get a little bit looser in those games. I don't know if he feels that the weight isn't heavier in those games because we know that he knows what he's able to do. And he says, okay, I can go out there. I've studied harder for these. Maybe it's something where he's prepped harder because he knows it's a big game. Maybe it's just, it gets his adrenaline pumping, but he does seem to look good on those big stages. It's one of those, we saw what he did last year. And part of that is you have to get on a roll.
Sure.
And Sark's going to try and get him on a roll early. But this is something that if Quinn Ewers can go out and have a big game and do well again this year, he's going to start to go down in that Texas OU lore. If he wins 49-0 and then comes out and has another really good game this time and they win again, Quinn Ewers starts to go down with a little bit of that history.
Well, and I think part of that looking calmer in the big moment is some of the stuff we saw this offseason where Quinn really took ownership of this team this offseason. I mean, you see it in his personality, the way he acts on the sidelines and all that. He's fired up after big plays. The Wyoming game, first night they had the LED show going off. He had the guys gathered up and he was getting them fired up to go win this game in the fourth because it was 10-10 against Wyoming. Yeah. So I think that's a big part of it too, he now feels ownership of this team.
He does. He definitely does. And I think that, even last year in that game, this is something he grew up watching. He grew up wanting to be a part of, and it feels good to be there. Even when you feel like you haven't achieved all of your goals, when you can go, this is something I dreamed about as a kid, and now I'm doing it, you can get a little bit more satisfaction out of it. And he seems like a guy that can lean into that with the positive effects. And he's going to get to do it again, where if he goes, I could beat Oklahoma twice. That's something that not a lot of Texas quarterbacks get to say, that they went in and handled their business twice.
Yeah.
So, we'll see if he could be able to do that. And it leads us in to the Big Fat Poll of the Day.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the Day on the Horn.
We've talked about the OU player that was most hated. You most hated in this rivalry. We've talked about the Texas player that you were most fond of. Surprisingly, online, Jordan Shipley came away with that one. Thought it might have been Peter Gardere, 4-time winner against Oklahoma at quarterback. Maybe Stoney Clark was on there. Maybe Dicker the kicker even. You went more recent. But Jordan Shipley comes away with the win online on that poll. But this week, let's talk about the future. And we just said Quinn Ewers, maybe if he goes down, he handles his business, and they go ahead and play another big game. And Quinn's 2-0. He's looking pretty good against this rivalry. But who to you is going to be the most important player for Texas against OU? Who's the one that you think can go etch their name in this rivalry? The last one in the Big 12, who do you think that is? 512-447-3776. Who's the player? Is it a defensive player? Does Jalen Ford have some big plays, an interception, and a sack?
Ooh.
Is it Ethan Burke? Is this a game where Ethan Burke comes out and gets 2 or 3 sacks in a game and everybody goes, man, Ethan Burke, he was a good player, but man, that Oklahoma game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, one of those statement games.
Or is it Byron Murphy comes out, gets a touchdown, gets a sack, gets a fumble? Like, what player do you think you go, man, this guy is going to be? Is it Xavier Worthy that he's kind of been double teamed all year long? They've been, they've had to go other ways. He's gotten his yards, but he hasn't had that, huge game yet. Does he come out and go down and go, man, I'm going to go get 250 against Oklahoma?
What about all of those?
But I'm just saying, who do you think is who's the one that you think, this is the guy, this is their time? Who's the most important guy to you that you think this is their time to go beat Oklahoma? Send that in. 512-447-3776 is the text line. We'll get to those in a minute. We come back. Joe Cook from Inside Texas going to come and break down this Texas OU matchup. You saw he's already named a play in the Texas playbook. So, I don't know how many guests have that, but we'll give it to Joe Cook. He'll be on when we come back here on the Sports Complex on the Horn 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and at hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex on a Thursday afternoon here on the Horn, keeping our hate music going for Texas OU week. Just got to play some good hate music. Oh, we got a couple left. If you've got a good one that's better than mine, send it on the text line, 512-447-3776. Got a couple more songs to play before we get out for the week and we get to a 512 Friday. We're also asking the poll of the day, big fat poll of the day, who will be the most important player for Texas versus OU? Who could put themselves down in Texas football history in this big Red River rivalry, or whatever you want to call it? I just call it Texas OU. It's much easier to call it that. On the phone with us right now, joining us in the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline. He's joined us many times this season. It's always a good conversation. You can follow him at Joseph Cook 89 on X, or you can follow him at Inside Texas. He is a managing editor of Inside Texas right now. Joe Cook, how you doing, brother?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, Patrick.
Of course. So we'll start off. You did name a play in the Texas playbook today, I think.
On screen.
Okay.
And I think the half roll is industry lingo, but I think spin around screen was my own little take on it.
That was very good. But you did bring up a good point that, you know, he has invested in the screen pass a little bit more this season than I think he has in past seasons. Is this something that, you know, we've criticized Sark's play calling plenty over the first 2 years, especially in the second half. What to you has been the biggest difference in Sark's play calling for Texas this season?
The players are executing them. Sometimes it's that easy when you have the players who can make the play calls work. But no, he's also, I feel like, been able to do some things in the passing game that wasn't available to him last year. Last year, a lot of what he operated on and operated with had to focus on Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson. And, of course, it makes sense. Those are probably the two best players on the team. And that's why, basically the Texas offense kind of seemed to threaten the line of scrimmage and then 30 yards downfield last year. This year, now he's got a complete wide receiver core with three different players who can threaten defenses in different ways. He's got one of the best tight ends in the country. And he's got a run game and an offensive line that can, when running into honest boxes, pave lanes and create paths for really good quality backs. So, and I think a lot of play callers would tell you, hey, they're executing plays, but he's diving into certain parts of the playbook that he wasn't able to do last year and then really mixing it up well while he's doing it.
Yeah, it seems different, but you're right. A lot of it is just kind of execution to a certain extent, and then having the weapons, adding A.D. Mitchell has definitely helped out a lot in this game. When you talk about this Oklahoma team and the defense for Oklahoma that's been putting up really good numbers so far, Texas has had a pick your poison kind of offense all season long. What do you see Oklahoma trying to do to stop this defense? Or stop this offense? You figure early on they're going to stick to their bread and butter, but what are some tricks that Venables might have up his sleeve?
It's probably going to take some blitzing. I've seen our friends over at the Oklahoma On3 site suggest some exotic blitzes. Well, I've never really heard of native blitzes, so I guess they're all exotic. But I guess, it's going to take extra pressure. It's going to take looks to confuse an offensive line that in some places, they've played a decent amount of games, so they're still first or second year players or seeing their first extended action like this. That's been something Texas has struggled with in the past. They've done a lot better job with it this year, but I think that's what it's going to take. I don't know if Oklahoma has the defensive linemen yet to really match up honestly with the Texas O-line. They've got some guys in their current recruiting class who can do it, but that's the key, I feel like, at least as far as getting in the pass game. And that'll also mess with Quinn Ewers. That'll mess with his rhythm, his timing, the whole offense's timing. So I bet Brent Venables, as opposed to last year where his defense didn't really understand the scheme of that 3-3-5 that has often messed with Steve Sarkisian, this year they have some better players. They have, I think, a little bit of a simpler scheme, and now they have some linebacker talent to bring some blitzes. So I think that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, hey, Joe, Jacob Standard here. Since you're basically part of the Texas coaching staff now, we've been kind of talking about who the most important Longhorn is going to be in this game. And so I'm kind of curious from your perspective, who's a player that we haven't quite seen a lot out of yet that you think could be poised for a pretty big game against OU because maybe we were saving them in the game plan for a game of this magnitude?
You know, I would think maybe a few weeks ago I would say something like Keelan Robinson for this, but it just doesn't seem like he's going to be a big, huge part of the game plan this year. And maybe this is the week where it happens. We kind of just see him in certain situations where they need a gadget play and they run him in motion and do some different things with him. But we haven't seen him enough to where I think he's going to be a real threat. And maybe that's the long con that Steve Sarkisian's trying to run. But if you had to give it to somebody who, sees regular action and is a regular part of this offense, I mean, how can it not be Jordan Whittington? Everybody knows who A.D. Mitchell is. Everybody knows who Xavier Worthy is. And now Jatavian Sanders, who Steve Sarkisian says is going to play on Saturday, people know who he is. He's got 200-yard games, and there have not been very many 100-yard games by Texas tight ends. But Jordan Whittington's done everything right this season. He's caught the passes thrown to him. He's blocked he's blocked with a lot of fervor. And I think this may be the time for him to get a play in the standard offense and make something happen and get a touchdown and have an Oklahoma game memory.
There you go. How about we're talking to Joe Cook right now from Inside Texas. Joe, we look at Oklahoma, and there's clearly one player that sticks out, and that's Dillon Gabriel. He didn't get a play in the game last year. We assume, we can't say that we know he's going to play because Texas has been surprised on game day multiple times this season without playing a starting quarterback. But assuming Dillon Gabriel gets in the game, what is Texas' game plan to not slow Dillon Gabriel down, but to get him to maybe make a mistake or not be able to take that big shots over the top and get that offense really rolling?
They got to stay true to what their assignments are. Gabriel in some of the games and highlights I've watched, he's really good at pump faking and taking, looking guys off, making them go the wrong direction. And a lot of that has to do with the way that offense works as well. So I think you guys have heard this enough. Any quarterback that has pressure in his face is going to suffer and is going to, see his mechanics break down. It'll probably force him out on the move. That's where guys like Jahdae Barron, Jalen Ford, even David Benda have to be able to track him down, and the guys behind him have to be able to stay on receiver. So, I mean, it's always a pretty simple equation for me. If you can get pressure straight up the middle, straight in his face, and it's going to be hard day for Gabriel if that happens repeatedly.
Yeah, no, totally agree. So we know both of these teams can score points, right? That's not a secret. Texas is averaging 36, Oklahoma's at 46. But if you had to pick a number where you felt comfortable, what's the number where you feel comfortable that Texas wins the game? How many points do they have to score? What is this game going to be a race to?
I think the numbers are different for Texas and Oklahoma. And man, I've done a lot of talking this week, and I've done a lot of typing this week, and I'm sure that it sounds like, I just don't see a path for Oklahoma. And maybe that's, not maybe. And man, that's a lot different than recent years. But when looking at it from a Texas perspective, I've got to think that if they can hit 30, then it's a good chance that they're going to, assuming no turnovers, assuming no maybe like special teams touchdowns, I'm thinking that, it's going to take just 30 points, because I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to envision the Sooners scoring on 5 possessions, because they're probably going to get 9, maybe 10. It's hard for me to see Oklahoma scoring on 5 possessions. So I think Texas' number is 30. If Oklahoma starts getting up into 40, well, then it's going to be back-to-back possessions, stuff like that. That's a tough number. I know I'm kind of getting off track here, but I think for Texas, if they can get to 35 points, if they can get to their season average, I think they'll be in good shape, just because I don't see the Sooner offense being able to keep up against the Texas defense.
All right, if you had to name one player for Oklahoma that we haven't put up there, because Dillon Gabriel is the clear forefront, then who's a player for Oklahoma that you might think, this is the guy that you kind of need to watch out for because he seems poised to go against the Texas defense or a Texas offense?
Maybe Danny Stutzman, their linebacker. He's done a lot already. He's on pace to set some linebacker records at Oklahoma, and he's going to be someone all over the field. I don't want to say he's like their Jalen Ford, because I think they play a little bit different, but he's a guy who, wherever the play is going, he's got to head that direction, and he heads that direction well. So I think that's the player. If they attack the passing game, then he's going to have to drop in the coverage, and he's done some good stuff there. But run game, that's where he's done pretty well, and where they're going to try to have him try to wreak some havoc in the Texas run game and come downhill and try to fill some gaps to make it tough for Texas.
Joe Cook, we're talking to Joe Cook from the managing editor of Inside Texas. You can follow him on X at JosephCook89. You mentioned earlier, everything analytically, everything seems to point to Texas being able to walk away with a win in this game, which doesn't it make you feel a little bit worse about it? Because you say, well, if it was even and if it was 80-20, then maybe I'd feel a little bit better about it. But it feels like every category you look at, it kind of feels that way, which makes you feel maybe it's a little too easy and we're missing something. Is for a Texas team that's had a lot going on this season, going everything. How is this team staying resilient and focused at a time where it is going to take everything to just stay on track going against Oklahoma, because something go wrong and it can go wrong very quickly. How do you stay on track if you're Texas and not give Oklahoma a shot to win this game?
I think you do what they've said they've been doing the whole time, and that's you use this as a stop on your way to something and not your destination. This team, it's always been talking about going to Arlington and winning in Arlington. Well, it's DFW Metroplex, but it's Dallas. It's not Arlington. You're not going to win the Big 12 title this weekend. And you may have to play this team again, this Oklahoma team again, in Arlington in early December. So I think they've done a pretty decent job of being able to overcome, a lot of accolades. They got 10 first-place votes in the AP poll. They got some of these analytic things, saying it's going to be a touchdown victory and things like that. But they've done a good job of keeping their eyes on the prize. And to them, that prize is the Big 12 title. And they know that this is just the midway point, the halfway point toward the getting to that destination.
Very good. Joe Cook from the managing editor of Inside Texas at JosephCook89 on X. You can also go follow at Inside Texas. Keep up with all the great stuff they do over there. It'll keep you up to date with Texas. Next week's going to be a bye week, so you want to be able to stay in touch. Then the best way to do that is to follow a guy like Joe Cook at Inside Texas, because they don't take weeks off either. They go strong at it. Before I let you go, Joe, we've been asking everybody who's going to be the most important player in this game today. Who is the most important player for you that you think can come out of this as the MVP for Texas and secure a win and go down in Texas history as a team that, beats OU on the way to bigger things?
It's got to be Quinn Ewers. If you're the quarterback of the Longhorns and, your team is able to win and in the case of this game, put up maybe, 30-something points, if that's how it shakes out, you're going to get a lot of accolades. And granted, who knows what his future looks like after this year. It kind of seems like if that's the case, he's on his way to maybe seeing his professional career start in the upcoming April draft. But if you're able to do that, have two giant games, one of them being 49-0, the other one being a win, go 2-0 in your career, help Texas win the last Big 12 version of this rivalry game. That's something that puts you into the history books, puts your stamp on the game, and makes the Cotton Bowl a special place for you down the line.
That's true. If we said earlier, if Quinn Ewers can come down and get another big win against Oklahoma, then that's a career for the rest of your life. Even after NFL days, you can still come back, and they'll always have you back at the Cotton Bowl for this game. Joe Cook, I appreciate you joining us again this week. Always great with the information. Follow him at JosephCook89 at Inside Texas. Are you doing anything special for the game?
I'm working it, but man, this is my favorite day of work every single year. I show up early, and what part of the time I'm done working, and a lot of the fans have filtered out those lines for wax cuts are not very long. So I love this weekend, day, and can't wait to get there on Saturday.
There you go. Appreciate it, Joe. We'll have you on again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Joe Cook there, always a great listen, always a great read. If you follow him online or subscribe to Inside Texas and get the information there. We're asking everybody of you who are reading and subscribing to at Patrick's Big Fat Poll today, 512-447-3776 is the text line. 512-447-3776 is the new text line if you haven't moved over to the new one. And if you haven't sent it your nickname, you can still send that. But who is going to be the most important player for Texas against OU this week? Who's the guy that can etch their name in history? It could be a defensive player, could be an offensive player. Joe Cook just said Quinn Ewers, but maybe this is a Jonathan Brooks game.
That's
if
my
Jonathan
guy.
Brooks goes for 250 or something.
That's my
and
guy.
just
That's the kind of
dominates
game.
again. What
Yes.
about that? Could be that as well. Let us know on the text line 512-447-3776. And also, please feel free to send in your favorite OU jokes. Any Oklahoma jokes we'll take. I'm going to get Jacob to put them together and then try and read some at the end of the show, and then it'll be canceled and never allowed on air here again.
Yeah, we got a couple submissions that are going to walk the line already, but, we'll see. We'll see.
We'll get to it. 512-447-3776 is the text line number. We'll be back to read some of those texts when we come back right here on the Sports Complex on the Horn 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and at hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex on a Thursday afternoon. This is not the Sunday Night Football theme.
No.
If you only think of it as that, you should listen to some more music. This is Hate Myself for Loving You. Another hate song for you for Texas OU week.
Man.
It's the song they ripped off. Or I'm sure Joan Jett got paid very well for it. So,
yeah,
so
probably,
good for her.
Probably got a nice check out of that.
Yeah, probably
one.
got a nice check.
The NFL's got some deep pockets.
Version surprisingly better than a version written for a football game.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Great Joan Jett there. We're asking on the text line 512-447-3776. Who is going to be the most important player for Texas versus OU this year? Who can etch their names in the annals of Cotton Bowl history? The Red River rivalry, or Red River shootout, or Red River showdown, or State Fair street fight, or throwdown and Big D and
D-Town Throwdown.
D-Town Throwdown. The other names. I just go Texas OU. I don't like any of them really.
You don't? I love State Fair street fight.
I think it's
so
good.
Much.
It's just so long.
That one's not that bad. You can
It's
get through it
4 words.
quick. State Fair street fight.
Oh.
You can get through it real quick.
I don't know. 4 it's for someone like me who doesn't like to talk a lot.
Yeah, right?
Clearly.
Yeah.
We'll get to your text though. We do have Rye Guy from New Mexico listening in. Shout out to Rye Guy. I have a friend who is a Ryan who he was a Rye Guy every once in a while. He's not from New Mexico though. So. Scarlett going back with the Maelstrom. She's going for that one again. She gave us a definition. If you scroll back up in her text, Jacob, you can see where it is, and it involves. But I feel like it's because it sucks.
And
it's too OU.
I get where you're going. It's like you were talking about a mouthful. There's way too many syllables there.
There's too many. Yeah, I get it, but I like it because it's on my same path that I like one word because Bedlam for me is the best.
Bedlam is solid.
It's good.
You know what it means. You know what you're getting into. Yeah, that's a solid one.
Jordan Whittington will have a good game versus OU. I hope so. We just heard Joe Cook say that as well. Jordan Whittington has a lot of good games. Statistically, not so much, but what he does for this Texas team on plays where you just don't see him, how important wide receiver blocking is for this Sark offense to work. Wide receiver blocking is hugely important, and there isn't a better college football player. There may be some that are as good as him. I won't say that there's no one that is as good as him, but there's no one better than Jordan Whittington at wide receiver blocking.
No, and a key part of that position, filling that role on a team, is accepting that role. And Jay Witt has no problem being the lesser noticed, do everything behind the scenes guy.
Yes. Chief engineer, along with some jokes, because I want Quinn to be playing pissed off.
Love that.
But he doesn't even have to play pissed off. He just needs to go out there and do what he does. I think Quinn this year, that's the whole thing, is it's not proving anything to anybody. He's just going out there and playing good football, and then he's having fun doing it because they're up all the time.
Yeah.
But he's got his new way of he's focused, and whatever he's doing seems to be working. So don't change a thing.
I will say I have noticed on a few of his touchdowns or big plays this year, Quinn always knows right where the camera's at. So there are times where you can find Quinn looking for the camera because he wants to give his little word, like when he found the parabolic mic and said hook him.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he knows.
Yeah. I mean, for this guy, he was, whenever you're supposed to be the biggest star in football, like junior year of high school, you learn certain things. Yeah. And something I'll always give credit to Hulk Hogan, as much as I'm not a Hulk Hogan fan for a lot of reasons.
Like what?
Hulk Hogan had this thing where if you go back and watch old wrestling matches and stuff, he's really good at just being right in this corner of a frame where he knows where the shot is of the other guy.
He's just stealing shots.
And he's in the background.
Yeah.
No, but it works because it's he's looming over everybody.
Oh.
He's this guy. It was done so well, but it's also just such an ego-driven thing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But so if you could do it, you could be, just got to avoid those other Hulk Hogan things.
Right. Well, he doesn't do it all the time. He's not always stealing the camera limelight.
No.
But he definitely is. There are times where he is searching for it.
We know he likes to eat his vitamins and say his prayers.
Yep.
So he's got that going for him.
Yep.
All the Quinomaniacs out there. I don't know if that works. Quinomaniacs. I don't know if that works. Stein, I know it probably won't happen, but I'm hoping Murphy or Sweat. If that happens, it means we won the line of scrimmage. I think we're going to win the line of scrimmage. Their offensive line is pretty good, but our defensive line, Murphy and Sweat are just killing it. What I would love about that is that means we're getting pressure on Dylan Gabriel.
Oh, yeah.
And so winning the battle is half of it. But Dylan Gabriel gets the ball out so fast. So it's not the question so much of can you get win the battle, but if he's getting the ball out in a second or two, you're just not going to get to him in that amount of time if anybody's standing in front of you. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm standing in front of you, it's going to take you 2 seconds to break both of my legs and get over and get the guy behind me. But those 2 seconds will buy Dylan Gabriel time to get the ball out. But if you can play good enough defense that those are incompletions and those are covered up and he has to go and take a second read and a third read, then you can get those big guys down there. But I'm with you, Stein. That would be a huge coup for Texas if they're able to get that secondary playing tight enough to not let guys get behind him and play tight enough to make him not make those quick throws. Big.
Or even to not have fear of the deep throw because you're getting home in 2 seconds like you're talking about.
Yes. At Farrell Tex, Jonathan Brooks. Jonathan Brooks is another big one. I think that's a big one. And yes, I am a Westwood Warrior, Farrell Tex. I am class of 02. Class of 02 for Farrell. But yes.
Really now?
I am a Westwood Warrior. That is Northwest Austin, where I grew up. So yes, I've been in Austin. Yeah, I'm an Austin guy from back. So of course, I did not graduate from UT. My mom, my brother, my dad all graduated from UT. So I was around it all my life.
Join the club. UT told me I was a little too dumb. So
I was working for a band. It was much more fun. Let's get to 2 more of these here, and then we got a break. Nate, we can't read your text again. Every time I can't read that text, Nate. I appreciate you listening.
we get a good laugh here in the studio.
We get a laugh in the studio, but I can't read that on the air. And Boudreaux here. That one is for Jacob. You got to put that one down in your. We got another joke in there. We'll get to the jokes a little bit later. Victor, voice of Nelson Field, says, I think Whittington is going to have a good game because he's due. He is really due. I'm telling you, Jordan Whittington is having great games for Texas. I'm telling you he is. Statistically, I would love to see him get up there, but I will tell you this, NFL scouts don't just look at stats. Jordan Whittington, they're looking at things that he can do on the other side of the field. There is not a better pass blocking wide receiver than Jordan Whittington, and that it means something at every level of play. So Jordan Whittington is getting seen. People do love him. Sark loves him because he uses him in every game plan. It's just a question of, can he get a few catches? I'd love to see him get one in the end zone against Texas OU. After coming back and everything, it would be great to see him get one in the end zone.
Yeah, that'd be a big moment. That would be a huge moment for him.
We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll read more of your text. We will get into some college football picks, some pro picks. Jacob will not tell you what our record is, but I guarantee you it's really, really good. Just do not bet on our picks.
I'm definitely telling you our record.
We'll be right back on the Sports Complex. Keep texting it, 512-447-3776. We'll be right back on the Sports Complex right here on the Horn 1019 and 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex, hour 2 on a Thursday afternoon. Get into your text, 512-447-3776. Got some good ones going. We're going to read some more of those. We're going to get into some college football picks. We're going to get into some NFL picks. We're still asking you who's going to be the most important player for Texas versus OU this weekend. If you got any jokes, send them on in for Jake to read. And, we're going to keep it rolling here. And if you've got any picks, anything else you want to put on there, we'll be doing our Texas predictions tomorrow. The big show tomorrow. Aaron Hogan's going to be out with guest at Terry Black's Barbecue in Dallas. So you can go check him out if you're going to be in Dallas. Rob Baber's going to join me in studio, giving you 3 hours, 4 to 7 tomorrow, breaking down Texas versus OU, whatever else we talk about on the weekend. I'm sure we might get into some other topics, but we're going to be talking a lot of Texas and OU tomorrow. And then Saturday morning, 9 to 11, right here on the Horn, you can hear Rob Babers and Aaron Hogan breaking down, giving you the pregame, and then watch party, the Field House out at the crossover. Myself, Jacob Standard, who is joining me today, will be out there. All of that info should be available at hornfm.com. I'm not the web guy.
I believe it is.
One of the jobs I do not have is I am not the web guy, but all that information should be up at hornfm.com.
I'll call the guy who handles that.
You'll call the guy.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Your text, though, before we get to some college football picks, we'll read a couple more texts to get to you guys. So we appreciate you sending them in because Oklahoma Greg did sacrifice for us. He said he's been real interesting. I've been listening to OU sports stations today, and they're saying OU won't be able to run on Texas, so they'll be going high tempo with quick passes to move the ball, which is what they've been doing, and they haven't been able to run the ball on many people. The run game has not been great this year, so we knew that. Also said OU has much better defensive ends, and if they can continue to disrupt Ewers, he'll turn it over, which will be the difference in the game. They have had good pass rushing. They've also played against worse offensive lines than Texas has, so that kind of goes into it. And if Texas doesn't have great defensive ends, we have a much, much better interior D-line than they have. So as much as they can say our D-line as a whole is probably better than their D-line, but yes, their edges may be slightly better, slightly more experienced than what we have at our D edges. But it is. They're going to try and disrupt Ewers. They're going to try and show him a bunch of different looks to confuse him so he doesn't know where the pressure is. They also blitz linebackers a bunch in that Venables system. So they're going to be trying to basically get everybody to commit and then send a delayed blitz up the middle. They know he likes to hold the ball a little bit too long at times, but if Quinn Ewers can keep running the ball, if he gets out and spreads outside, that's the thing Dylan Gabriel can do that you have to worry about. Quinn Ewers has shown in the last couple of games he can do it too, and if he does that on you, it adds just another weapon on the Jonathan Brooks can run the ball at you. Quinn Ewers can go to the outside. You got JT Sanders, Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell, Jordan Whittington. And there's just so many weapons. It's going to be hard. They're going to try and go up tempo. They're going to try to the problem is they've been subbing running backs a lot at Oklahoma because neither guy has been able to really stay on the field and do anything. And if they sub, it allows Texas times to sub, which kind of slows down that hurry up because Texas is going to be able to bring guys on and off, and they have the depth at defense. So that's a question: is does Oklahoma really try and play hurry up and not substitute? If they do that, they may be able to get to an edge because Texas has been used to rotating players a little bit more.
Yeah, and maybe there's a little bit of gamesmanship there too, where if Texas gets the opportunity to sub where the refs are going to go stand over the ball, maybe you just kind of send him out there, at his own pace.
Yeah. Well, especially if it's on their side or if it's in your side. You don't want to let him communicate, all those things.
Right.
Another name for the thing, the Cotton Clash. I don't know. I think Cotton will stay further away from. I know it's a Cotton Bowl and all that, but I think we'll stay away from it for now. Sergeant Cake, I'm picking the whole D-line for the X Factor of this game. Outside of this is a good game to let Jonte Cook get some deep balls. I do think they're gonna have something to throw out there. It is curious. And we said Keelan Robinson's a guy who kept seeming like he was going to be brought out, but he hasn't really been. And I think partly they weren't expecting to have as much success as they had. You're hoping to have it.
They were insurance plans almost.
Yeah, and you go, well, if we don't, it's in case of emergency, break glass.
Right.
There's no emergency.
No.
So, those guys may be sitting, and they've been waiting for 3 games now going, all right, guys, break that glass. But we don't know. I'd like to see one of those younger guys, a couple of the younger guys maybe get in and get a couple deep shots down the field. I know he likes to keep in his guys, especially because of, having to audible if you need to, having the blockers where I don't know if he trusts Jonte Cook or any of those younger guys to necessarily block as well. So if you do decide, okay, Quinn's going to have to carry it and you like to be able to have him a little bit of blockers, you may not have that. But for deep shots, you can get one of those young guys in. I'm agreeing with you there, Sergeant Cake. My favorite, Jordan Whittington. Fact is that he hangs out with Bevo before and after the games. My favorite Jordan Whittington fact is that he hangs out with Bevo before and after games. That sounds like a Jordan Whittington thing.
Yeah.
It sounds like it.
Oh, yeah. Have you seen pictures of it?
I have. I've seen pictures. I didn't know it was every game.
Oh, he's very serious about it. He loves him some Bevo.
It's much better than bring out the wagon. Is that what they bring out?
I don't know. It's hopefully they tightened all the bolts this year.
Hopefully, or they don't. Either way, what are you going to do? I know. Look, Oklahoma, we know Oklahoma people suck. We know they're not that smart. We know this. In 2023, we got to be politically correct. Oklahoma people are smart enough to tighten bolts.
Maybe.
They've learned lefty, loosey, righty, tighty. We've had to tell them for years.
I'm not convinced.
You're not convinced. Okay.
No.
Bevo Angel says the most important player for Texas against OU will be Jonathan Brooks. If he goes for 200-plus yards, it means our O-line is winning in the trenches. It will open up the entire playbook for the offense. A performance like that will definitely put him on the national stage. It will. It is, yeah. If Jonathan Brooks goes off again after he played extremely well against Alabama in a big game, and after he played really well the next few weeks, and if he puts him up, and that would put him up close to 800-something yards for the season already, I think he starts to get some notice. But also, if Quinn Ewers look well in these games too, so the Heisman vote kind of gets split around. But just to get national notice, I don't want to give him too much because you'd like him to be around next year,
right?
But just enough. Piper says Jay Brooks gets 200. Do we already get Ugly Kid Joe? Hate music. Yes, we did, Moffitt. That was the first song I played. Was Ugly Kid Joe. Solid. I have to watch it, though, because I know he cusses later in that song, and I didn't have the edit version. So we'll get to that. Warrior Pride Never Dies, class of 03. Man, there's a lot of Westwood Warriors that listen to this station.
There was a ton of it lit up after you confirmed
We were burnt
that.
orange. We were like a burnt orange team.
Right.
So
yeah.
I guess we can get it there. McNeil Mavs in there. Ooh, rivalries and another Warrior class of 99. Shout out to all the Warriors out there. You know what? And look, Round Rock, our Round Rock ISD, shout out to those guys. Really, anybody's listening, shout. I don't have any real pride in my high school. I didn't care that much when I was in high school. Much more care about these Texas Longhorns right now. But let's get to some picks, and we'll get back to the text line, 512-447-3776. Send in what you want to talk about. If you've got a most important player of the game, you haven't sent that in yet, send that in to us. But I do want to get to some picks. Jacob says, I've been perfect so far this season.
False. No, false. You were 3-3 last week, not 3-4-3.
3 for 3 last week. Nailed it. Those other ones were clearly not my picks.
We're not going to disclose what my record was, though.
We're not going to disclose. I can tell you it was worse than 3 for 3.
It was 2-4.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it was not a good week.
Yeah, when I said worse for 3 for 3, you're like, I'll just close now because 1 for 5.
Because then the options started getting bad. Man, did he go 0 for 6?
Let's go through some of these games real quick, and we'll get back to the text line, I promise. 512-447-3776. You guys are killing it. So I say you guys drive the show. I just try to keep it on the rails, which is not working today. But we're going for it. So also, if you got jokes for Jacob to read at the end of the show, send in your favorite OU jokes. Send those in. Who you think the most important player of the game is. Anything else you want to talk about? Texas OU, send that in as well. We're going to make some NFL picks, too. If you got an NFL, a hot take on the NFL, send that in. Some football picks, though. LSU, number 23 LSU, takes on number 21 Missouri. Kicking off games, 11 a.m. games. This is LSU's a 4.5-point favorite. Their season is already pretty close to over.
Yeah, that's not looking good.
They were hoping that this was going to be a season they can compete for a national championship. Jaden Daniels really thought he was going to lead them. This offense has been good. This offense has been electric. The defense has not.
They just can't stop anybody. Yeah.
I got first of all, we'll tell you the easy pick. I think the over, even though it's pretty high at 64.5, I like the over in this game because Missouri also doesn't like to play defense.
Well, the over seems like a good bet.
LSU has some injuries in the secondary. I believe they have 2 guys out and a third that's maybe out in that secondary to let Missouri kind of go out there. Missouri secondary is outside of the top 100 and their stats. So both these secondaries are beat up, not playing well. Look for Jaden Daniels and Logan Diggs to try and do as much as they can in this game. But this LSU defense is so bad.
Yeah.
They're so bad. And I think that for Missouri, they're at 5-0, have a lot more to play for. They're at home. I think this LSU team, all it takes is one player on defense to not have that mental lapse and to, just get out of it because they're a little down because this season isn't going their way. And I think Missouri can come out and at least cover, if not win this game, at 4.5-point favorites. They got Brady Cook's a quarterback. He's got no interceptions this year. And they have a wide receiver named Luther.
There you go.
Missouri. So, I like guy's name. Luther's a cool name for a football player.
Okay, so you're going to take Missouri with the points?
I'm going to take Missouri with the points.
Okay. Well, and it is interesting that Missouri's secondary is outside the top 100 in terms of statistics for a group of a secondary because they have two of the SEC's top defensive backs back there as well. Yeah. But their safeties get beat deep all the time. And guess where Jaden Daniels loves to throw the ball? He's got 353.4 yards per game through the air, and he's got a 99.9 QBR according to Pro Football Focus on throws 20-plus yards down the field. Give me LSU minus 4.5.
You like LSU going there?
Yes.
I think it's a high-scoring game, but, it just goes back and forth. I think Jaden Daniels also can make some more mistakes. Brady Cook understands what to do to keep the ball safe, and I don't know if LSU has that, but that's what I'll go with. So we got the differences there. I'll say Missouri cover, or I'll say Missouri with the points. You say LSU covers. Washington State, number 13, looking good. Everybody loves Washington State, one of the remaining Pac-12 schools still in existence, taking on UCLA. UCLA is a 3.5-point favorite, even against number 13 Washington.
Make it make sense.
They're second in passing, Washington State.
Yep.
This passing attack is electric.
Oh, yeah.
They're 99th in rushing.
Oh.
So they are the definition of a one-dimensional team.
Yeah.
They want to throw the ball. They want to throw the ball. They want to throw the ball. UCLA has a really good defense. UCLA is 6th overall in scoring defense. I think when it gets down to the red zone, if you can't play power football, it kind of hurts you a little bit. So I think even if they're going to be able to get some big plays, they're not going to be able to get in the end zone. I have I have Washington State covering, but I think UCLA wins.
Okay, yeah, I'll take Washington State as well. Like you mentioned, electric passing attack, not so great in the running game, but the UCLA freshman QB, Dante Moore, he's starting to show that he's a freshman.
Yeah.
Because he started off really hot, and he missed his first 11 of 15 attempts in his last game. So, give me Washington State with the points, which is absurd.
Yeah. It's crazy they're getting points, but that should tell you something about how people feel about this team going forward. And when national rankings in Vegas don't agree, you tend to go with Vegas.
Right.
That's just the general rule. Big one. Number 11 Alabama is a 1-point favorite over the Texas A&M Aggies. They did their cult ritual the other day for Halloween. The Aggies did, where they paint their faces and bring out pumpkins, and they do. It's a whole thing they do, and every year they're like, why are you guys so surprised? We're like, because we think at a certain point someone will stop this.
We thought somebody was going to grow up.
We thought somebody along the lines would go, hey, guys, you shouldn't do this because you guys are a cult. Like, you look really like a cult. And even we know anyone's free to leave. You're free to leave. Don't leave, but you're free to leave. Don't leave, though, but you're free to leave.
Yeah, Scientologists are looking at you guys sideways.
Max Johnson's played well coming in for A&M. But I get that this Alabama team hasn't looked great. The defense is getting better as the season goes on. Milrose looking like he's getting a little bit better. I don't think the fall of the empire of Alabama, I think, is a little bit over exaggerated because Texas went in there and beat them.
I agree.
That everybody thought, and then the next week they basically pulled Milroe and put in 2 bad quarterbacks. I think Alabama gets this win.
Yeah, I'm taking Bama as well. I mean, it's Nick Saban we're talking about here. You said earlier this week, if they have 2 losses, it's a bad season for Alabama by their standards. That's absurd.
2 losses to former assistants too.
Yeah.
Ooh, Nick Saban would be mad.
Right. No.
Yeah, and trust me, if Nick Saban wants to beat one coach in college football, it's Jimbo. And Jimbo Fisher, I know he wants to beat Nick Saban. I just don't have the same level of respect for Jimbo Fisher.
Not even close.
Surprisingly enough.
Yeah.
We're too similar so far.
Bama is a 1-point favorite. That's a joke.
I get it. It's at A&M. I get that Jimbo,
they got you last year.
And I get A&M is probably putting a ton of money on this game. I think Aggie fans are putting a ton of money on this game.
Exactly
they feel good about it.
Yeah.
So I think that may move the line a little bit. UCF is a 1-point favorite at Kansas. Just an interesting game for Texas fans. Again, this is a team you have played. If Kansas continues to fall, Jalen Daniels is a game-time decision. So the reports are he's probably not going to play in this game, which is not great. You've got Beam. He played okay against Texas, but that is clearly a much different offense. The defense isn't quite there for Kansas yet. UCF is third in rushing offense with Johnny Richardson and R.J. Harvey. They're both running the ball extremely well. I want Kansas to win this game because I think it would help us out if Kansas did well, but I got UCF covering the 1 point.
Yeah, I got UCF as well. UCF had 201 yards in the first quarter against Baylor last week.
Yeah.
They scored a touchdown on their first 3 drives. And I get Baylor is Baylor, but we saw what Jonathan Brooks did to this Kansas rush defense. I mean, I just think UCF is going to be way too much to handle on the ground. Give me UCF -1.
Yeah, if Jalen Daniels playing, it may be something different because you are able to kind of go at him piece for piece of offense versus offense. But without that, just it's too much. Number 20, Kentucky, goes on to take number 1, Georgia. 14.5-point spread for Georgia, but we know they have not been looking as dominant as in years past. They're winning. They're not as dominant. Let's just say that. And part of that is Carson Beck is a young new quarterback. Stetson Bennett knew what he was doing. He knew how to run this offense. Carson Beck is showing a little bit of immaturity and a little bit of inexperience.
Sure.
Going up against a Kentucky team where Ray Davis looked like the greatest running back in the history of football last week.
Oh, my goodness, he was unstoppable.
They had to pull him out of the game after 280 yards and 3 touchdowns. They had to pull him out of the game. I believe 4 touchdowns, actually. He had a receiving touchdown as well.
Oh, yeah, that was a painful game to watch.
Kentucky defense looks good. The run game looks good. There's a lot of things going for you with Kentucky. I don't think they beat Georgia, but I think Georgia has not been putting up 50-point games against everybody anymore. I have Kentucky keeping it in the number with the points. I have Kentucky going for it.
Okay. I mean, that's interesting. Kentucky did look really impressive last week. Let's get one thing straight. This isn't Florida. This is Georgia, the number 1 team in the nation. Okay? There's no way that Georgia isn't going to try and make a statement game against this Kentucky team. That stadium holds 92,000 people, and those Wildcats are going to be terrified when they get in there and the Georgia Bulldogs start making all that ruckus. Give me Georgia to cover 14.5.
Yeah, I just think Georgia is a little bit more vulnerable to not lose this game. I don't think Kentucky wins the game, but if you can play solid defense, you can run the ball, you can control the clock enough that you're going to be able to stay in the game and maybe get a late cover late or, just stay in the game within it. But I like Kentucky in that one to cover 14.5. A couple more games for you, and then we'll get back to the text line. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll do some NFL picks. 512-447-3776. Send that in. If you've got any picks, if you've got who do you think is going to be the star for Texas in this game, send that in. 512-447-3776. Number 10, Notre Dame.
Yep.
Had a rough couple weeks.
Yeah.
They played 2 big games. Ohio State barely lose the game against Ohio State. Heartbreaking fashion. Then try and lose the game against Duke and come back and are able to get the win and keep their season alive. 6.5-point favorites against number 25 Louisville. Louisville not having a hard run of it.
No.
Jack Plummer for Louisville has 6 interceptions. I don't trust him in this game against Marcus Freeman's defense. Notre Dame is finally going to turn it back on, and I think this is the opponent they need to have where they can come out and handle what they need to handle. Louisville is not a bad team. They're just not ready to play a Notre Dame team who I feel is going to be pretty pissed off by how the scheduling worked.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I'll take Notre Dame to cover the 6.5. Sam Hartman can absolutely sling the football. 14 touchdowns, no interceptions. So
yeah, Sam Hartman's just really good, and it just seems like they're going to be pissed, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, God.
Well, okay, the caveat. Assuming they have 11 players on the field at all times, I'll take Notre Dame to cover the 6.5.
Couple more picks. Well, one more big one, and then I'll get you one. Number 24, Fresno State at Wyoming. They're a 5-point favorite against Wyoming. We know Wyoming is tougher than some people think. They're top 15 in explosive plays. Fresno State hasn't played hardly anybody this season. Going up against a Wyoming team, I don't think that you're going to take them lightly, but I got Wyoming pulling another upset in this game. Wyoming over Fresno State. Fresno State's been good, but I like Wyoming and their toughness.
We're on the same page there. I thought I was going to get you on that one. I like Wyoming with the 5 points. That running back they have, Harrison Whaley, I mean, he had 191 yards again last week.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just a monster. So I'll take Wyoming to sneak up on Fresno State, who's won 14 straight against a bunch of nobodies.
Yeah. So Fresno State's been looking good. And I think this, again, helps your resume if you're Texas. Get Wyoming. Show a little bit better. Help that resume.
Look at them. They beat Fresno State.
Hey, they're a ranked team.
Yeah, 24th ranked
They're
team in the
ranked,
nation.
they're ranked.
Yeah.
If your non-conference schedule is 3 teams that can beat ranked teams,
That's not bad.
that's a really good non-conference.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Let's go look at what Oklahoma's non-conference was. Let me research what these names are. Come on. It's a good non-con for Texas. Speaking of Texas, I will make my pick tomorrow. But you get to make your pick today because you're not on the air with me tomorrow.
Yes.
Number 12, Oklahoma versus number 3, Texas. Texas is 5.5 last I looked. It was moving down, though, getting a little bit closer. What do you got?
Okay. So we've been talking about this all week, and we've gone over the matchups and all that, so I'm not going to kill y'all with stats about how Quinn needs to have a big game or they need to shut down Dylan Gabriel, but I will tell you this. I am done being on the fence. I am done saying this is the week they get got. I am done hoping that Texas opponents keep it within the number just so I can feed my ego and say I was right on the pick. Texas made a couple statement wins already this season, and this is going to be the best one yet. Give me the horns, hook them, because it is 6:26 and OU still sucks.
There you go. There you go, Jacob. That's how you make a pick on the radio, Jacob. That's how you get them. Everybody told Jacob he did a good job. Round of applause from everybody on the listener base, especially all my Warriors out there.
There we go. Sorry. Got a little fired up on that one.
When we come back, we'll read some more of your texts. We'll get to some NFL picks and get closer to wrapping up the show. Maybe we'll get some jokes read, too. If you guys got OU jokes, we'll see if Jacob's got some of them ready, too, before we wrap up the show here. 512-447-3776 is the text line. We'll be right back on the Sports Complex on the Horn 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back at the Sports Complex on the Horn. Got about half hour left for you here on the Sports Complex on a Thursday afternoon. Text line's open, 512-447-3776. Send in your text. We're asking you, who is the most important player for Texas? Who is going to be the star of the show on Saturday for Texas as they go on to beat OU, like Jacob has predicted? Like everyone seems to have predicted.
Yeah,
it's making me nervous. It's making me nervous how much everyone's predicting him. OU people are predicting him, and it's driving me nuts.
It should feel good.
It should.
It should feel good.
It'll feel good Saturday at like 2 p.m.
No, see, and I don't want to eliminate the paranoia after the Oklahoma game. I want it gone before. I want to go into Oklahoma thinking we're the most dominant team.
I don't want the team to be paranoid. Don't get me wrong. The team needs to have a much stronger mental fortitude than radio host Patrick Davis needs to have.
I'm certain they do. I was talking about for us. Yeah.
I know. We'll be out there sweating it every play call out there at the field house at the crossover where Jacob and I will be for the watch party for the Horn. You can come join us out there. And tomorrow, of course, big show, 4 to 7 p.m. Aaron Hogan out at Terry Black's Barbecue in Dallas. Rob Babers joining me in studio, giving you all the angles. Texas OU. We've been talking about it all week, but who doesn't want to hear more?
Well, y'all are going to break out some stuff that people haven't heard yet, right?
I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
Hey, we may get a Ryan Watts update by tomorrow, too.
Hey, check that out.
We will. We know. If you have not heard JT Sanders, Sark said that everything, that he looks good and is coming back, which is great news because when that injury happened, you could have thought the worst. So to just basically miss the second half of a game that you were up in, not the worst thing.
No, it definitely made me hold my breath for a little bit. JT Sanders is. Man, he's good. He's different.
Let's get back to the text line. We get Hook'em Baby, Texas 34, OU 23.
There we go.
That's a pretty good number right there. Want to see the Texas O-line and D-line maul the OU lines and Jonathan Brooks run for 168 yards and 2 TDs. That is a very specific. It's almost a very nice number. 1 yard off a very nice number, but 168 is a great number. I was going to tell a joke I can't tell on the radio. So just hold that one in as it went through my brain.
Hold on. Try to dance around
it. Nope, can't dance around it. The whole joke is relying on something dirty. My pick is Jaylan Ford. 2 picks on Saturday. That would be a big game for Jaylan Ford to get 2 picks. I'd love to see that as well. We've had a couple people saying that Jaylan Ford that he's going to step up and show, not that he needs to, he has been playing great, that he's going to step up and show that he has should have been defensive player of the year last year and go on a national stage and say, I was the defensive player of the year for the Big 12 last year, and y'all didn't vote it for me. So I'm going to go out there and embarrass all you that didn't vote for me.
If he gets a chance to do an acceptance speach, when he gets it this year, I hope he says, yeah, it's nice to be the reigning 2-time defensive player. Yeah.
I do. It is funny. I don't know if Texas players are going to win any Big 12 awards this year. I think you got to kind of take them, but we'll see if the Big 12 media does not vote for them out of spite, where they're all going to say, well, we're not watching. We'll watch the other games. I've looked at the rest of that Big 12 schedule. That Kansas UCF game is the second best game.
Yeah, well, then you have to make the resume undeniable then.
Yeah, you do. And hopefully these people will not take it out on young men that these schools have made decisions.
Right.
I mean, they will because they're grown babies, but you should not take it out on the college athletes that the colleges made decisions for money and punish them and not give them awards that they clearly won. So you shouldn't do that. And that goes for OU as well. You shouldn't do that for Texas. You shouldn't do that for OU. If OU players deserve those awards, you shouldn't do it either that way.
It is unfortunate that the top 2 teams in that conference are leaving.
Yeah. I mean, we know in the Pac-12, Washington State and Oregon State are winning everything.
Yeah, no, those 2 are looking solid, yeah.
Nate says, want to see a big game out of X, the kind of game that gets some articles on him being the first-round pick again. I agree. He's had some big games against Oklahoma before in the Cotton Bowl. This is one where on his way out, we all assume he's going pro next season, that if he comes out and has that big game where OU tries to play man coverage for a while on him because they're going to try and focus and stop the run, and if they try and stop Jonathan Brooks and they put him in man coverage and you just see Sark's eyes light up, you see those eyes of Texas, they're watching and just Xavier Worthy. We could see it. I like to see that as well. Texas should be ranked 1 right now with the resume. If they're not after this game, then I'm crying conspiracy. Look, if Georgia beats the crap out of Kentucky, they're going to stay number 1.
You don't punish someone for winning.
You don't. And I could see it with Michigan too, but Michigan's done everything they need to, and they've blown out everybody they played. I can see that Texas has played the toughest schedule, but this will all even out because Georgia's going to play some good teams.
Oh, it's coming.
And if they don't win, then they won't. I'd rather us not get to number 1 and then get jumped because our schedule's not strong enough.
Right.
Because that sets a precedent for us to go down to 4 or 5 undefeated just because our schedule lessens out because of the Big 12. So I don't want to set that precedent. Texas can get up there, and they can get to number 1 legitimately because Kentucky takes it down to the wire in overtime game against Georgia, and they decide to knock them down because they didn't do it, and Texas handles their business. Or Michigan has a close game or something like that, then I'm fine with that. But I get it that because of the resume right now, but in the whole season, it'll even itself out. And now that we're not in the BCS, it's not as terrible as it was back when this Texas OU game mattered before.
Yeah.
And
now, granted, Georgia's SEC schedule is going to be a little lighter than it should be, but they still have to play an SEC championship at some point, and that'll be against a very, very difficult opponent. All
right. Let's get to some NFL picks before we run out of time, and then we'll try and get some jokes at the very end. You got some jokes written down?
I've got a couple, yeah.
Okay.
We've had a couple
we'll save
really
those
good,
for the very last segment.
Yeah.
If you've got any more that he wants to look at, 512-447-3776. We get any more good texts, we'll try and get to them. I appreciate everybody texting in. TJ Horn, 4117 Horns. I appreciate everybody texting in right now. Let's go. Let's go tonight's game real quick. Bears-Commanders. Man, Thursday Night Football is back, guys. Whoo. Commanders are 6-point favorites. They took the Eagles to overtime. Eagles are a good team. I think Commanders are going to win this game, but I'd still take the Bears to cover just because I think it's going to be an ugly Thursday Night Football game.
Are you really?
I would take the Bears to cover this game. I look, and it may be a 7-point game. It may be a 1-touchdown game, but I think it's a 1-score game at the end. I know the Bears are not good at all, but I think they'll put up a fight to it, and I think the Commanders have played down to competition basically every single week.
Fair.
So I think they basically don't play at their top level, and the Bears play – we don't know what their top level is.
Yeah.
So I think it could be a 1-score game, whether it's 7 or 5 or 4. I will take, because the odds would say, take the Bears to cover.
So here's how I'm looking at it. I don't see any improvement at all from the Bears from week to week. If anything, there might even be a regression. Whereas the Commanders, I can see improvement. Sam Howell's playing a little bit better. They're starting to figure it out on defense a little bit. On that premise alone, I'm going to take the Commanders -6 because I don't have a lot of faith in the Bears to score the football.
Yeah. No, I don't either. It's more along the lines, and we know Sam Howell threw 4 interceptions in one game. He's got 5 on the season.
Right.
So it's a misleading number of his interceptions.
Right.
I just, for whatever reason, the Commanders haven't blown anybody out. They've hung with everybody, and they haven't really stepped away from anybody.
True.
So
they haven't played the Bears.
They have not played the Bears. That is the statement of the day right there. Let's go down. We're not going to hit all these because we don't have time.
Okay.
We'll do the Jaguars and the Bills. It's an interesting one. Bills are favored by 5.5. They won their last 3 games by a combined 90 points. The Bills.
Yeah, this is a joke.
The Jaguars have not been playing great, but they are in London. This is another London game. It's an 8:30 a.m. game.
They never left.
So they have better rest. This is, even though it is a home game for the Bills, it is a home game for the Jaguars.
Yep.
We know this. Is there a chance that they throw off Josh Allen, even though he seemed to figure it out after week 1? Do they throw him off and are able to get it going because it's there, or is it's just
no chance? After his week 1 4-pick game, he has not thrown one since, and like you said, they've been beating people by a combined 90 points. Buffalo has figured it out.
And one of those teams put up 70 the week before.
Yeah.
They beat the crap out of the Dolphins after the Dolphins beat the crap out of the Broncos.
Not only did they beat them, they held that offense to 20 points.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. This Bills team is playing really, really well right now.
Yeah, give me the Bills -5.5.
Bengals and Cardinals. This is a game where the Bengals have to win, right? This is panic mode if they don't win this. They drop to 1-4, which is basically you're getting close to having to win out, and you maybe lose one more game in the whole season.
I don't know the exact number, but I know for 0-3 teams, it was like 13% of them make the playoffs.
And we know that the Bengals are really, they have the talent on that team. They haven't been able to do it. They're the 32nd ranked offense.
Oh.
But the Cardinals are the 26th ranked defense. And I think Joe Burrow is going to be able to right the ship a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be long-term righting the ship, but I think he rights the ship and we get to see it, and everybody gets some more hope against the Bengals that their offense starts to look a little bit better because they just take deep shots on this this Cardinals offense. I think the Bengals cover on this one.
I agree. I think exactly what you said. Joe Burrow, get right game. I think he comes out, tries to make a statement like the Cowboys should have done.
Ingles, 4.5-point favorites at the Rams. Ingles are the number 2 rush defense. The Rams are not going to be able to run this ball. They're going to have to make plays down the stretch. They have been keeping it close. The Eagles have not been blowing people out. There's been some problems. We don't know if Jalen Hurts is 100%. There's been rumors that he may not be. But this comes down to third downs. This comes down to if the Eagles and the Rams can stop the Eagles on third down and get them to punt the ball and get a few more opportunities. I hate to say it. I like the Rams to cover 4.5. I don't know if I like them win the game. I like the Rams to cover.
Yeah, with the points.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to agree, and I haven't seen the latest update on Cooper Kupp. I mean, I know he was back
He
at practice.
really wants to play.
Yeah.
They don't know if they're going to let him into that game or not.
Right.
I would assume he's not going to play until we see him that, but
Yeah.
I like them to cover. They've had electric options. I think they're going to be able to get some plays over the top and some big plays to keep them in this game.
Yeah.
And so I have the Rams covering.
Me too, and they're getting points.
Let's get to the Texas teams. Texans taking on the Falcons. Falcons 1.5-point favorites. It's a great rookie matchup. Bijan Robinson versus C.J. Stroud. We get Will Anderson in there too. Tank Dell a lot of good rookies in this game. I last week kind of took the Texans just saying, oh, they'll do it again. And they did it again. They had another really good week.
How did that feel watching that go down?
Whew, that was a fun game. Last 2 weeks have been fun to watch as a Texans fan.
I bet.
This is a game. Defensively, Texas needs to get the pass rush. This is not C.J. Stroud game. C.J. Stroud's got to be good. It's a Will Anderson game.
Ooh.
Will Anderson, if he can go expose Desmond Ridder,
Okay.
if he can get after Desmond Ridder in this Atlanta, I know Bijan's going to be Bijan. We know what he's going to do. But you need to expose Desmond Ridder. You need to get at him. Let Jalen Petrie or Bobby Ward or Jimmy Ward get up there and get an interception. Get out Atlanta to mess it up because of Desmond Ridder. I think Texans can get after Desmond Ridder. D'Amico Ryans knows how to get after these guys. That defensive mindset is going to get them. Bijan's going to Bijan.
Sure.
We know what he can do. But I think they can get after Ridder. I think they can get after some of the weaker parts of this Atlanta offense, get in there and score enough points to come back and win this game.
Yeah, I agree. Bijan's going to do what he does, like you said, but I think they can weather the storm a little bit. And the way C.J. Stroud's playing, it's just unbelievable. I used the term undeniable earlier. You can't deny what he's bringing to that team anymore. I'm taking the Texans as well.
Cowboys at 49ers. 49ers are 4-point favorites.
Yes, they are.
Cowboys, they need to make this a Brock Purdy game, and I don't know if they can do that. But you got to stop this run. You got to stop this run. Cowboys' run defense seen some holes lately.
Yeah, people are gassing us pretty good.
And Christian McCaffrey, there may not be a better running back in the league right now.
No, there may not be,
and there may not be a better coach for coaching the run. This run game is this another loss for the Cowboys?
No, it is not. This is the week that you knock the boogeyman off of your shoulders. This team has owned you over the last 2 seasons, Cowboys, and it is time to get your revenge. I will take the Cowboys and the points because maybe they lose by a field goal, but maybe
not the type of endorsement. Look, I think Dak Prescott comes out and has a good game. I think the Cowboys play pretty well in this, and the 49ers are just too much for him right now. If Rico Dowdle doesn't play too, it's just
that's a surprising thing that I'm worried about.
It's too easy to go out there and guard CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
And I think once you guard CeeDee Lamb, this offense is going to slow down immensely because now your number one guy's out there and you're going to have Michael Gallup. But if it's just Michael Gallup versus the 49ers, I don't have a lot of hope for the Cowboys. I think they can figure this out. I don't think they figured it out yet because they didn't seem to address a lot of the problems they had. They added Brandon Cooks, but they're not really using him a ton.
No.
He's not getting the production he needs to get. So that piece of it that you thought you'd want to add, that wasn't there. You say you added in the secondary, but you lose Trayvon Diggs. No fault of your own on that one. You did what you needed to do, but injury comes and gets you. So the ad you did there. So both the ads that the Cowboys made that we thought were going to make a lot of difference. And Mozzie Smith, another thing you added that was supposed to be to help stop this run game.
Right.
He's not ready to go yet. He may be there by the end of the season, but he's not there yet. So I just don't think they're ready yet to go against it. But this is a good thing because if the 49ers come out and get after you, then Jerry Jones has a little bit more time to make a decision if he wants to try and do something drastic to help this team out this season. He may make a move.
Well, you forget, we already know the 49ers' entire playbook. We picked up their backup quarterback.
Oh, that's what it is.
He gave us the entire scheme.
He gave you the entire scheme. You know what you could also do? Watch game film.
Yeah, that part too.
It's not like Brock Purdy's doing anything that crazy.
Well, no, because remember, that's what turned the game for Baker Mayfield. Remember that one time? He knew the signs at halftime.
He knew the signs at halftime.
We know him from the start.
We know him from the start. There we go. We're going to take one more break. When we come back, we'll try and get some jokes out of Jacob for Texas OU. If we get any more of your text, 512-447-3776. We come right back here at the Sports Complex on the Horn 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and thehornfm.com. Wrapping things up on a Thursday afternoon here on the Sports Complex. Thanks to Jacob Standard for joining me like he does every week for the picks. I'm sure all of mine are going to be perfect. And the only ones that you will miss will be the ones you chose against me.
Yes.
That is what we know.
Yes.
We've been asking on the text line for some jokes, for some OU jokes. So we get closer and closer to Texas OU.
Indeed. I've got a couple
Jacob,
picked
do you
out.
have some jokes picked out for us?
I've got a handful picked out. I'm going to ask you a couple questions here, though.
Okay.
Okay, so why do
We're doing
all the trees in Texas lean north?
Why is that?
Because OU sucks.
No, I didn't. I had no idea that was where
I
it was
know,
going to go. Yeah,
right?
okay.
Isn't that crazy? All right. So why did the Oklahoma football team cross the road?
Why is that?
Because it was easier than crossing the goal line.
Ooh, ouch.
Like
All
that
right,
one a lot.
All right, all right.
Like that one a lot. Why do the Oklahoma Sooners eat cereal straight from the box?
Why is that?
They choke whenever they get near a bowl.
I like it. I like it. I like it.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then there was another one. I got to go find it again.
No,
It
this
was sent a little earlier.
Good radio.
So
Good
this is
radio.
great.
Searching.
Yeah, go ahead and just keep fill and fill. And so Texas and OU and
A reminder,
All right.
tomorrow, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., we're doing the show an extra hour. We're starting an hour early. Rob Baber's going to join me in studio. Aaron Hogan out at Terry Black's Barbecue in Dallas. So if you're going to Dallas for the game, you're going to be down there Friday, go see him. He says he's got some special guests going to come out. They're going to talk Texas OU. We'll be doing it all show long. I'm sure we'll talk about a few other things, but we'll be talking Texas OU. Taking your text as well. I'll make sure that your voice is heard in this conversation as we do every week because, you know, you guys drive the show, and I just try and keep it on the rails. But then Saturday, pregame, 9 to 11 a.m. pregame. It'll be in studio because the bar is not open at 9 a.m. You know, this is what a benefit of winning. The amount of times that we've had to, in my years of radio doing Texas things, had to set up at empty bars and figure out how to do 9 a.m., 8 a.m. pregame shows because
Right.
Texas is playing at 11. Being good right now, Texas seems like, you know, we're getting some better times for games.
Well, did you see Buffalo's going to open bars at 8 for the London game?
Well, it's Buffalo.
Yeah, it is.
You know,
Yeah.
and I'm sure we'll have bars. I've been at bars when we did World Cup. They would open up bars early here.
Oh, okay.
So bars will be open by 11 for the game.
Right.
They will not be
right.
open for the pregame show
Right.
that we'll be doing. So they'll be in studio 9 to 11. Rob Babers, Aaron Hogan giving you the best pregame show for the Longhorns you can find anywhere. And then if you want to come out and watch the game, Jacob and I will be up at the field house at the crossover because Aaron will be doing his watch along. So if you want to watch along, you watch along with Aaron Hogan as well. So he'll be doing that. So he can't be at the watch party, but we will be out at the watch party if you
We're
want to
gonna
come
be having
talk
a
with us.
good time.
Having a good time. I'm going to try and get Jacob really drunk before the second half.
Woo, it's gonna be fun.
So we'll see, and we'll get him a drink for every touchdown Texas scores. So hopefully, blitzed
Oh man,
is what we hope. But that is coming up on Saturday. All the information at hornfm.com. You found the joke.
I did find the joke. You ready?
Yes.
Why do Texans say y'all?
Why is that?
Because it removes the worst two letters, O and U.
That's a good one.
I
That's a
love it.
solid one. That's
I
a
love
solid
it.
one. I like that one a lot. We're going to have to come back. We're going to get back with you again tomorrow, the big show. Tonight's game. Do you have any way? I think Chan has a good one. Roshan's in it. So maybe we just watch Roshan and we cheer for Roshan?
Yeah, I think that's the only way. I mean, I do have a pick'em league, and I'm going to have to pick one of these two teams to win the
I
game.
got to set my lineup.
So I'll be
Set my
invested.
lineup.
I'll be invested that much into it.
I don't think I have any Bears or Commanders.
Yeah, so we pick the games and we weight them by points based on how confident
Yes.
you are. This will be a 1-point game for me.
You know, no confidence.
No confidence either way in this game.
Oh, come on now.
No.
Yeah, it'll be a fun time. We appreciate you guys on the text line as always. You make the show so much more fun. Tomorrow is going to be a really fun show. Bring you as much as we can. Of course, E and Rod B will be back on the air tomorrow morning to get you ready. But we hope that the Horn will be your home, getting you ready for Texas OU. It is going to be a big game. I'm still feeling good about it, which makes me feel nervous. It's starting to get to that point.
It's okay to be confident. Last week it was okay to be uncomfortable. This week it's okay to be confident.
I like that, Jacob. I like that. Words of wisdom
There you go.
from my man, the Digital Dog. Do we get a name?
We did not get a
Yeah,
name.
we'll get a name.
There were a couple suggestions, but
We'll get a name next
yeah,
week.
We're
It's a bye
workshopping
week
it.
next week, so we'll have bye week. We'll have a good old show.
We're workshopping it.
I don't know what we're going to talk about on the show all next week. We'll be back tomorrow, starting early, 4 p.m., right here on the Horn. Until then, be kind, be safe, keep your underwear clean, and we will see you tomorrow right here on the Sports Complex.